Rama Rama Mai Subhadra. Jaya Jaya Bala Gopal Jaya Srinath Jaya Giri Govardhan. Jaya Srinath Jaya Bala Gopal Jaya Srinath Jaya Giri Govardhan. Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva. Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Jai Harinama Sankirtana Ki Jai, Prabhupada Ki Jai, Antakoti Vaishya Vrinda Ki Jai. Hare Krishna everyone. So welcome
Hare
to
Krishna Prabhu. Hare Krishna all the simple devotees.
So I wanted to see today we could chant the Nrsimha Day prayers today. We just learned recently that Grace Ragini Priya Mataji's father left his body today, and so we'll chant. Also pray for the strength of their family and his safe journey home. As well, you've seen the news that His Grace Advaita Priya Prabhu also left his body, as well as the mother of Kulavir Prabhu. And for all the assembled Vaishnavas. So we'll sing Nrsimha Day prayers as the source of our protection in our spiritual journey, and pray for strength for all the Vaishnavas, particularly these families, as they manage through this difficult time, and pray for the mercy of the lotus feet of Shri Shri Radha Kunja Bihari for their blessings. We'll just sing the Radha Radha Daine, Radha Radha Daine, Hiranyakashi Purvakshaha, Hiranyakashi Purvakshaha, Nilakankana Kalaye, Nilakankana Kalaye, Ito Nrsimha Parato Nrsimha, Ito Nrsimha Parato Nrsimha, Yato Yato Yami Tato Nrsimha, Yato Yato Yami Tato Nrsimha, Ahe Nrsimha Hridaye Nrsimha, Ahe Nrsimha Hridaye Nrsimha, Nrsi Mamadim Sharanam Prapade, Nrsi Mamadim Sharanam Prapade, Tavakara Kamala Varenaka, Adutta Shringa, Nalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubhega, Keshavadita Narahari Rupa, Jaya Jagadisha Hare, Jaya Jagadisha Hare, Jaya Jagadisha Hare. Tara Kamala Varenaka, Adutta Shringa, Nalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubhega, Whoever has shared the screen, they can maybe stop sharing. Someone is sharing. Okay, yeah, that's okay.
No, that's not.
Okay, all set. No problem, no problem, no problem. Just so that. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnana Shalakaya Chashurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna everyone. So welcome to this study of discussion of Bhagavad Gita. Today we'll be completing chapter 11, text number 55. Last time we discussed about half of the purport, and so this time we'll finish the purport and maybe do a short introduction into chapter 12. Okay? So the verse reads in the 55th verse, My dear Arjuna, he who engages in my pure devotional service, free from contamination or fruitive activities and mental speculation, he who works for me, who makes me the supreme goal of his life, and who is friendly to every living being, he certainly comes to me. So, this verse, Krishna is explaining, because in the prior verse, he said that it is only by undivided devotional service can Krishna be understood as he is. And he says, as I am standing before you, meaning in his original form, his two-armed form. So, Krishna now is explaining there are 5 things that should be done. And the 5 things are: engage in pure devotional service, be free from contamination of fruitive activities and mental speculation. 2. 3. Work for Krishna. 4. Make Krishna the supreme goal of life. And 5. Be friendly to all living entities. So these are 5 activities. And if one does, he'll certainly achieve Krishna. So last time we spoke about the aspect of Krishna Loka a little bit in the very beginning, and we talked about the Bhagavad Gita is a book that is helping the conditioned souls, those attached to material sense enjoyment, where we're all coming from, to find the real purpose of life and how to detach from this nature and tendency to try to lord over, as Prabhupada says, or control the material nature, which is not controllable by us. And this Bhagavad Gita gives the very precise principles by which one can unlock their grip from that material attachment and reattach to the supreme spiritual relationship we have with Krishna. And that relationship with Krishna, when we hold on to very tightly, brings about absolute perfection of life. And that is the goal of everyone. We all want the same thing, perfection of life. Nobody is in search of anything but that. That is the only goal every living entity has. We are all bound by that common thread, which is to be happy and find perfection. And that happens in the performance of these 5 things. So we talked a little bit about working for Krishna and how Prabhupada in the purport spoke about if one has a business, they should use that business for Krishna. And Prabhupada quoted this verse from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu on Yukta Vairagya, this Anashaktasya Vishayam Yatharam Upayanjate Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yukta Vairagya Uchyate. That real renunciation is not to leave one's job or to leave one's home or to leave one's family. That is not real renunciation. Real Yukta Vairagya, real renunciation means that one uses whatever facilities they have only in the service of Krishna and renouncing the use of anything for one's own sense gratification. That renunciation is real renunciation. So when one is able to, as Prabhupada talks about, if a businessman is in possession of thousands and thousands of dollars, and if he has to offer all to Krishna, he can do it. This is what Yukta Vairagya is. So one doesn't renounce the business or the money, but one renounces the use of it for one's own sense gratification and uses it in the service of Krishna. Just like one uses their home as a shelter to house the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And of course, we are also living in that home, but it is Krishna's home, not our home. And we are the servants in his home. So we like to claim, this is my place, this is mine. But the devotee has a nice home, but they use it in consciousness of who is the real proprietor. And we spoke about working for Krishna is defined as whatever we have, whatever ability we have, one should offer to Krishna. It is, and Prabhupada gives the comment in the purport, that if one has even just a tulsi leaf to offer, it is not just a tulsi leaf. It is the most precious and valued offering by Krishna. Because Krishna does not look at what we give. He looks at the ability we have, and of that ability, how much we give. So we need not worry, oh, I don't have so much I can do. No. Whatever we can do it for Krishna. And if someone is doing big service, or someone is doing comparatively small service, Krishna does not see big and small. We, materially affected, may see big and small, but Krishna does not see. Krishna saw the squirrel who was building the bridge with a few tiny pebbles of dirt, equivalent to the monkeys who were bringing giant boulders and mountains. He did not see big and small. Lord Ramchandra did not see. So the measure of our service is based on whatever ability we have. But we should use that ability to work for Krishna. Because it is Krishna alone who has given us this ability. It is Krishna alone who is maintaining our existence in this material world. And thus he is the rightful enjoyer. And when one learns to give to Krishna, then one actually gets everything and then some. So we talked about working for Krishna last time. We talked about Goloka Vrindavan, Krishna Loka, and Srila Prabhupada referred to this as, Mat Parama, refers to one who considers the association of Krishna in his supreme abode to be the highest perfection of life. The opportunity to serve Krishna in his eternal abode is the highest perfection of life. Actually, we define so many different perfections of life. Having so much wealth tends to be one of our primary definitions. Having so many followers on Facebook may be another definition. Having so many material possessions, maybe so many degrees, this, that, and the other. But we know whenever we get any of those so-called perfections, we are left unsatisfied. But there is one achievement that when achieved will constantly leave one satisfied and will constantly increase in bliss and happiness. And that is the opportunity to serve Krishna in his supreme abode, Goloka Vrindavan. So this is one of the aspects that Krishna is telling us, that we should make him the supreme goal of life. We have to have a goal in life. Right now our goal in life may be to get out of the house and get out of this coronavirus. But that is just a temporary goal. For what avail will that achieve us? If it doesn't bring us to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we'll not find happiness. Just as much as a prisoner. When a prisoner becomes free from the prison house, he thinks perfection of life. But then what? The prisoner must find some active engagement to find happiness. We are not all of a sudden just happy because we are free. We are still searching. So just being free, even going to the spiritual world, free from the material world, that will not give happiness. What will give happiness is the activity that one does there. And we'll read a little bit about that in the coming paragraph. But that activity is service to Krishna. That is what is fulfilling. And one finds that one doesn't even have to wait to go to the spiritual world. One can experience the bliss of rendering devotional service immediately, right away, today, tomorrow, and the next day. And that is the sweet reciprocation Krishna has for his devotees. Okay? So now let's read the next paragraphs we didn't read. So this is the middle of page 506 in the purport. The term Sangha Varjitaha is very significant. One should disassociate himself from persons who are against Krishna. Not only the atheistic persons against Krishna, but also those who are attached to fruitive activities and mental speculation. Therefore, the pure form of devotional service is described in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.1.11 as Anyabhilashita Shunyam Jnana Karmari Navratam Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam Bhaktir Uttama. So this verse is the definition of pure devotional service. And it is the seed mantra, the bij mantra for the whole nectar of devotion. So the whole Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, or Nectar of Devotion, expands off of this verse. And it's a very powerful verse. So in this paragraph, Prabhupada is talking about disassociation. So we know that association is very important for us in our spiritual life. It is one of the four principles, A, B, C, D. Association increases our progress in spiritual life. And disassociation decreases. Similarly, if I disassociate my cell phone from the charger, it will start to die. It will dwindle. But when I associate it back with the charger, it re-energizes. Similarly, our spiritual, our bhakti, when we remain separated from association of devotees, our spiritual energy starts to dwindle. And so this association is very, very important. In Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, he explains that association is like the fence around our bhakti lata, the creeper, the vine of devotional service. When you plant a vine, it is very fragile. And so what we do is we put a fence around it. So nobody can step on it, nobody rides their bike across it, right? We see these types of fencings. So that fencing around our bhakti is association. That in association, we are protected from the allurements of the material world. And we kind of hold hands and form a circle and don't let anybody, get sidetracked. And so we help each other in the process of devotional service. So association is very, very important. Now here it speaks about disassociation. As important as association is, we should be careful to avoid bad association. And Srila Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Instruction, the Shirupadeshamrita, says that one should avoid the worldly-minded association, those who are not interested in cultivating spiritual life. It is very dangerous for one's devotional service because it can pollute the mind and veer one off track. Just like, we tell our children, don't watch certain things. Don't speak to certain types of individuals. Why? Because we don't want them to pick up those types of ideas, thoughts, or habits. Well, the same applies to us as adults. We have to be very mindful of where to associate and where not to associate. And the meaning of association then becomes very important. Because association doesn't mean that I won't come in contact. Yes, we'll come in contact with so many people. In the workplace, we have different relationships we have to maintain in different aspects of our life. So the meaning of association means to become inspired or to draw inspiration from. So we be very careful that when we have certain dealings we have to do, let's say in our professional life, we maintain those relationships to the point necessary for that function. But we don't draw extra association, nor do we be very careful not to become inspired by such activities. But instead, we want to become inspired by those who are also searching for this perfection of life in rendering pure devotional service. Right? So association and disassociation are both very important aspects. And that's why Srila Rupa Goswami in the second verse and the third verse speaks about this Sangha Tyagat, right? And the Jana Sangha. He refers to association in both verses 2 and 3, illustrating the importance of maintaining good association and avoiding bad association. Because we know if I bring, if I take my iPhone and I associate it with the wrong type of power, it will destroy that iPhone. Right? I have to associate it with the right type of power. So similarly, by associating with, those who are atheistic minded, or even mental speculators, Srila Prabhupada talks about, or those who are too attached to fruitive activities. Right? What is the danger of being, associated with those who are too attached to fruitive activities? We may think, maybe I should have such ideas. and our process of detachment can become stalled. And so that is the content there. So in the next paragraph, Srila Prabhupada talks about pure devotional service. In this verse, Srila Rupa Goswami clearly states that if anyone wants to execute unalloyed devotional service, he must be freed from all kinds of material contamination. He must be freed from the association of persons who are addicted to fruitive activities and mental speculation. When freed from what such unwanted association and from the contamination of material desires, one favorably cultivates knowledge of Krishna. That is called pure devotional service. Anukulasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam. Hari Bhakti Vilas 11.676. One should think of Krishna and act for Krishna favorably, not unfavorably. Kamsa was the enemy of Krishna. From the very beginning of Krishna's birth, Kamsa planned in so many ways to kill him. And because he was always unsuccessful, he was always thinking of Krishna. Thus, while working, while eating, while sleeping, he was always Krishna conscious in every respect. But that Krishna consciousness was not favorable. And therefore, in spite of his always thinking of Krishna 24 hours a day, he was considered a demon, and Krishna at last killed him. Of course, anyone who's killed by Krishna attains salvation immediately, but that is not the aim of the pure devotee. The pure devotee does not even want salvation. He does not want to be transferred even to the highest planet, Goloka Vrindavan. His only objective is to serve Krishna wherever he may be. So now Srila Prabhupada is bringing us to the highest platform of understanding what is pure devotional service. So anya bilashita shunya. That means that one has no more material desires. They are free of all of them. All material desires. Not all desires, but all material desires. One may become full of spiritual desires, but free of material desires. I would like a little bit of wealth, I would like some fame, I would like this, I would like that. And we all often take a long list of our wants to Krishna. But that is not pure devotional service. Because pure devotional service means there is no motive in this service. Just like when a child serves mother. If a child serves mother because child wants an ice cream cone, well, that is nice, but it's not pure. There's a motive. But if a child is just serving mother out of love, no other expectation, then how pleasing is that to mother? So much more pleasing. Both services are pleasing. But when it is not tinged with any selfish desire, then that service is much, much more pure, much more pleasing. So to be pure in our devotional service, one must be free of all desires. Even the desire, as Prabhupada says at the end of this purport, to reach the spiritual world. Now wait a minute, we said that's the highest perfection of life. Right? So we have to understand, what is the desire to go back home, back to Godhead? Sometimes our desire becomes a little fruitive in nature. That our desire to go back to the spiritual world is, I just want to be free of birth and death and old age and disease. I want to be free of adhyatmika, bhautika, devi, all these miseries. Well, that is a personal motive. Yes, in the spiritual world there are none of those disturbances. But why are there none of those disturbances? Not to give us comfort, but to give us the ability to render service uninterruptedly. And the mood of the pure devotee is, I'm not desiring to go back home to Godhead. I am desiring to serve Krishna uninterruptedly, 24/7. And in the spiritual world, one doesn't need to rest the body, because the body is not material, it is spiritual. One has unlimited resources to please Krishna. One never gets sick and has to take a break from their service. One has unlimited variety of services. And so the desire to go to Krishna Loka is because one can render service in an extraordinary way. And so we must develop this strong desire to serve Krishna. And when we associate it with going back home to Godhead, it must be centered around this principle that Srila Prabhupada says, is that his only objective is to serve Krishna wherever he may be. So the pure devotee of the Lord doesn't even look for liberation. Right? And that's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Janmani Janmani Share in his Shikshashtakam prayers. He is saying birth after birth. Which means he's not even asking, free me from birth. He's saying birth after birth. What? Give me devotional service. So this is the mood of a pure devotee. Is that the idea is to be able to serve. Because that service to Krishna is the eternal nature of the living entity. And that is what gives us complete fulfillment. Everything else, every other single activity will not give complete fulfillment. We may get some fulfillment, some partial satisfaction. It will not be complete, and nor will it last. It will fade. But in rendering service to Krishna, in this mood of pure devotion, one obtains complete 100% satisfaction and extraordinary eternal bliss. And that is why it's the highest perfection of life. So we must make sure we couple the two together very carefully. The central point is rendering pure devotional service. Wherever Krishna wants me, I will serve. That is the purest of pure moods. That Srila Prabhupada very carefully is guiding us. Because he says in the sentence before, he does not want to be transferred even to the highest planet, Goloka Vrindavan. And Srila Prabhupada was sent from the spiritual world to this material world, which he often describes in not such glowing terms. Why? To render service. And the devotee is willing to go even to the hellish planets to render service to Krishna. And we see this as the great mood of wonderful devotees. And we'll talk about a couple of those in the next paragraph. The commentary about Kamsa is also very, very important. Because our mood of thinking of Krishna should also be very favorable. Kamsa was doing Vishnu Shmaranam. He was constantly thinking about Krishna. But it was not pure bhakti. Because it was not in a favorable mood. Anukulena. Bhakti must be with a favorable intent. The intent must be to please Krishna. So even sometimes we may be thinking about Krishna, for our own needs. Krishna save me, Krishna save me, Krishna save me. That is not pure bhakti. Because the mood should be, Krishna, I want to serve you. My mood is to please you. And that is the mood of pure devotional service. So, this definition sets us up for the goal. Now we may think, wow, how will I ever come to this point of being able to achieve this type of service, right? So Krishna is going to tell us in the next chapter, in the 12th chapter, right in the early part of the 12th chapter. He says to my devotee, I am their swift deliverer. Yes, this should feel like a very lofty and high goal. But Krishna can make it happen. We cannot make it on our own. But by the mercy of Krishna, who brings the mercy of the spiritual master into our life, then actually can happen very quickly, very promptly. So yes, on our own, we have no hope. Actually, Rupa Goswami explains this as Sudarlabha, is rarely achieved because one cannot get it on their own. But Krishna can bestow it upon us if we want it. So do not lament thinking, oh, how I'll ever have this pure consciousness. It can be had by the mercy of Guru and by the mercy of Krishna. And thus, we sincerely take shelter of Guru and Krishna, and by their mercy, one can purify of all these other desires. Because when we say pure devotional service, Prabhupada uses the word unalloyed. Unalloyed means if we have some metal, an alloy is a mix. It has some other metals mixed within it. But unalloyed means pure. So like that, in our heart, we may be rendering service, but we also have some other desires within it. So, we have to remove those other impurities in order to make it pure gold, pure devotional service. And our acharyas comment that sometimes the process of purifying the heart is a little difficult. Just like in order to purify gold, you have to put it into fire to separate the impure metals from pure gold. So also sometimes, we endure some difficulties in our path of devotional service. But those difficulties are the purifying activities. Just as putting that gold into fire is what separates the impurities from the pure gold, the difficulties are what burn the impurities from the heart. And so the devotee, sees as they face different challenges on the path, they never lose faith. Krishna's mercy is with me, and these difficulties are only for my advancement and purification and progress towards pure devotional service. Okay? So now we'll read the next paragraph, which is the fifth of the points that Krishna spoke in this verse, and this was friendly to every living being. And very relevant today. It's always relevant, but seems to carry some special relevance in our current era. So Prabhupada writes, a devotee of Krishna is friendly to everyone. Therefore it is said here that he has no enemy, nirvaira. How is this? A devotee is situated in Krishna consciousness, knows that only devotional service to Krishna can relieve a person from all problems of life. He has personal experience of this, and therefore he wants to introduce this system, Krishna consciousness, into human society. There are many examples in history of devotees of the Lord who risked their lives for spreading of God consciousness. The favorite example is Lord Jesus Christ. He was crucified by the non-devotees, but he sacrificed his life for spreading God consciousness. Of course, it would be superficial to understand that he was killed. Similar in India. Also, there are many examples such as Thakur Haridas and Prahlad Maharaj. Why such risk? Because they wanted to spread Krishna consciousness. And it is difficult. A Krishna conscious person knows that if a man is suffering, it is due to his forgetfulness of his eternal relationship with Krishna. Therefore, the highest benefit one can render to human society is relieving one's neighbor from all material problems. In such a way, a pure devotee is engaged in the service of the Lord. Now we can imagine how merciful Krishna is to those engaged in his service, risking everything for him. Therefore, it is certain that such persons must reach the supreme planet after leaving the body. So, Srila Prabhupada ends this paragraph by saying and indicating how dear someone must be to Krishna who engages in serving the welfare of society and helping all living beings become Krishna conscious. So Prabhupada says he must be very dear. Well, Krishna, at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, just before concluding, makes this statement himself. And he says, I'll just read, for one who explains this supreme secret to the devotees, pure devotional service is guaranteed, and at the end he will come back to me. There is no servant in this world more dear to me nor will there ever be one more dear. So Krishna himself makes the statement that no one is more dear than one who engages in this activity of being friendly to all living beings. Now, when we think of welfare activities, we have very broad and lots of variety of ideas of welfare activities and being friendly to living entities. Okay? So in today's time where we're all battling, this humanitarian crisis amongst us, there is great aid and great collective efforts, and it's very nice to see, the character of society coming together and helping those in need, abiding by the principles of distancing and things like this, and you see, great cooperation, and it is a nice character that is built. And often when there's a universal type of trouble, it brings bonds together as we all are in fight against this common cause. And we set aside our differences during these times. And it's a nice output from such a difficult environment. The goal is to help and to overcome this situation. Right? So Prabhupada, in the very beginning of the second chapter, speaks about compassion. And the devotee is extraordinarily compassionate to all living beings and is working very hard to try to find a permanent solution to their difficulties. They're not searching for a temporary solution, but a permanent solution. Just like if you go to a doctor who can cure your disease permanently is considered a much, much better doctor than one who may be able to just cover up the symptoms for a few days. Someone has a permanent cure, much better and rendering better service. So the devotee, their goal is to find and give what they have already found. Right? Prabhupada says, he has personal experience and therefore wants to introduce this system of Krishna consciousness. Because he knows, or she knows, that Krishna consciousness is the only means to relieve someone from the problems of life. Today, we all have one very pronounced and defined problem, and that is this COVID-19. And it is very real and tangible. But were we problem-free 6 months ago? No, we had different varieties of problems. Maybe we all had different varieties and different types, and so it wasn't so pronounced, but amongst ourselves we had so many different problems. A year from now, when this, assuming this thing settles, will we be free of problems? No. They'll just take a different shape, a different form. We won't even be free of disease. Even if this disease is solved, we know another will come. So a devotee is thinking beyond, more broadly, not just how to solve the current situation, but how to bring about a permanent relief to the suffering, not of themselves, but of all living entities. And that is the compassion of the devotee. And this is the mood that develops when one comes to Krishna consciousness. They do not become selfish in their desire, just as their desire is to only serve Krishna and not their senses. Well, they know in serving Krishna what is going to please him most? Seeing all of his children going back home, back to Godhead, serving him nicely. And so the devotee is inspired to help in whatever way possible to spread this message and to help people find a permanent solution to the difficulties. And the only permanent solution to birth, death, old age, and disease is Krishna consciousness. So whatever we can do to spread this message of Krishna consciousness is the greatest humanitarian effort. Yes, there are immediate needs in society, and it's very wonderful to see so many prasadam distribution programs taking place. that is meeting the immediate need of the body by providing food to those who are not able to access it. But it is not food. It is prasad. And that is getting to the root cause and the root source of uplifting that situation for that living entity. And so yes, while saving the soul, the body will also come with it. But by just giving foodstuffs not offered to Krishna, we may be temporarily easing the pain of the body, but will bring no permanent solution. Right? So the devotee is very intelligent in finding ways in which they can serve. And that was the whole life of Srila Prabhupada. Now, why at the age of 69 years old he boarded a boat, crossed an ocean 30 plus days, suffering heart attacks. He was living in Sri Vrindavan Dham, the dream destination of all Vaishnavas. But he left to come to the most difficult place. Why? Because he was friendly to all living beings. And he wanted to share this knowledge and render this great service. And so he gave up everything, was not thinking of his own comforts. Sometimes in the rendering of service, I can't do this, I cannot do that. But the devotee doesn't think about I, and only thinks, what can be done? What does Krishna want? What does the Guru want? And surrenders according to that service. And by that surrender, one obtains the potency to also perform that service. When Prabhupada was performing this amazing service, he always referenced his only ability was in serving the instruction of his spiritual master. That is what gave him the potency to render this service. And so when we attempt to render this service, no matter what our ability is, if we surrender to the instruction and the mercy of Guru and Krishna, then that effort will become potent, according to the will and desire of Krishna. It is not according to our will and desire. Anyavilashita shunyam. Even in spreading this message, it is up to the will of Krishna and Guru. Our job, just take to the effort, because this is the very wonderful activity of the devotee. So yes, the devotee is interested in purifying themselves, but the most purifying activity of themselves is to render this service of distributing this message door to door, neighbor to neighbor, town to town, village to village, state to state, country to country. Then one will find perfection. And whatever impurities we think we may have, they are real, and the means to get rid of them is by spreading this message. Because as Krishna said, they are most dear to me. And the reciprocation of Krishna is so extraordinary. And so why the devotee has no desire but to serve Krishna? Because Krishna reciprocates so much love when one renders service in this pure way, that they won't trade that reciprocation for anything, even residence in the spiritual world. It is so sweet and so powerful. It is their most cherished asset that they won't trade it for anything. And thus, they render service fully unmotivatedly. And the more one, the less one wants happiness and enjoyment in serving Krishna, actually the more they get. And that is the counterintuitive nature, but the factual nature of the loving relationship between the living entity and Krishna. So we'll just read the last paragraph in summary of chapter 11. In summary, the universal form of Krishna, which is a temporary manifestation, the form of time which devours everything, and even the form of Vishnu, four-handed, have all been exhibited by Krishna. Thus Krishna is the original of all these manifestations. It is not that Krishna is a manifestation of the original Vishnu Rupa, or Vishnu. Krishna is the origin of all forms. There are hundreds of thousands of Vishnus, but for a devotee, no form of Krishna is important but the original form, two-handed Shyama Sundara. In the Brahma Samhita, it is stated that that those who are attracted to the Shyama Sundara form of Krishna in love and devotion can see him always within the heart and cannot see anything else. One should understand, therefore, that the purport of the 11th chapter is that the form of Krishna is essential and supreme. Thus ends the Bhakti Vedanta purports to the 11th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of the universal form. So this is chapter 11. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda. Any questions or discussion today? Okay. Can we read it?
Prabhuji, one question like Hare Krishna, then Pranam Prabhuji.
Yes,
Very
Hare
nice
Krishna.
lecture. Prabhuji, like I know this pure devotional service, it's so hard. Like how does one develop that kind of thing? Because invariably it's so deep rooted, these some kind of a desire that comes up when we're talking about serving also. So how do we make sure that we develop that pure selfless spirit? How do we do that?
Yeah, it's a great question because, as you said, it seems hard, but actually it's very easy. But it's not easy for us to do, but it's very easy for Krishna to do. Krishna can rip out all of these desires in an instant, in a moment. So when will he do it? When we really want it. Because Krishna only fulfills our desires. So if we really intensely want it, we don't have to worry about Krishna, get rid of this desire and get rid of this desire and that desire and that. Just pray, Krishna, please allow me to render service to you purely with no desires, and chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Just if we intensely desire, Krishna and Guru will make it happen. Yes, it's very difficult. It's impossible for us to do it. But Krishna and Guru can do it in an instant. And it depends on the intensity of our desire. So our only activity is to intensify our desire. And that will bring one to pure devotional service. So we should just focus on that. We don't have to focus on too many other things. Just intense desire. Rupa Goswami explains that the rocket fuel to make rapid progress in devotional service is intense desire, greed, and humility. I can't do it, but Krishna can, and I have to have it. I must have it. If we combine these two things, rocket fuel to propel ourselves. So just desire and have utmost humility. You combine those two, it will happen. Because yes, we should understand it is difficult, but we should also understand it is nothing for Krishna. So simple for Krishna. He can do anything. So he will do when we desire. So just keep praying and keep acquiring knowledge to develop the intense desire. Right? That's the key. How do I intensify this desire? Because in the last 24 hours, how many moments did we spend desiring pure devotional service? Okay? How many? You might know. So just one thing. In the next 24 hours, double those. Just next 24 hours, by 9:04 p.m. tomorrow, just whatever time, and if you had zero desires, then just once in the day tomorrow, desire and beg to Krishna, give me pure devotional service so I can render service to you, please. Just pray that way. And the next day, add a little more, and a little more. And in short order, it will become our only objective.
Please said, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Wonderful.
Thank you for the
Hare
next
Krishna.
question. Hare. Yes, we have a question online.
Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Loud.
When Lord Krishna says, a person comes to me, does it mean the pure devotee, once leaving the body, his soul reaches Krishna Loka planet, which means during his life in this material world, he who engaged in all the 5 principles mentioned by Lord without any expectations from anyone, even though he might be engaged in material activities to take care of his loved ones?
So what maybe can you read the question again? I didn't-
Yeah, sorry.
Who's asking the question again?
Okay.
What? Huh? Mother and Gorku?
Yes.
Okay.
When Lord Krishna says a person comes to me,
Yes.
does it mean the pure devotee, once leaving the body, his soul reaches Krishna Loka planet? Which means during his life in this material world, he who engaged in all the 5 principles mentioned by Lord, without any expectations from anyone, even though he might be engaged in material activities to
Okay.
take care of his loved ones.
Understand. Yes, nice question. So the practical instructions, twofold. One, as Prabhupada talked about in the beginning of this verse in the purport about working for Krishna, right? So the devotee does not have any material activities, but they look like material activities. You know, going to the office. Going to the office is not a material activity for the devotee, because the devotee is going to the office to earn some income to use in the service of Krishna. Maintaining the family is not a material activity for the devotee, because the devotee is maintaining the family to bring them to Krishna consciousness. The devotee may, engage in cleaning the house, but that is not a material activity, because the house is a temple for Krishna, not their house. Right? So the activities may look material, but it is based on consciousness. What is the objective of this activity? So the devotee understands how to make all of my activities spiritual, how to bring Krishna into the center of all of them. And thus, there is no this basket and that basket. It is all one. Right? And that how we get guidance, from Krishna and the Bhagavad Gita and the broad principles, and then from Guru on how to, specifically apply, these principles. But the idea is that one throughout their life is performing Krishna consciousness, but it doesn't mean that one is abandoning, their job, their family, their home life. No, but they're making all of those also Krishna conscious. And as I mentioned, just as an example, making your office Krishna conscious doesn't mean you take your mridanga and harmonium to the office. It means that you are working to acquire some means to then serve Krishna. So it is again about consciousness. Devotee carries a briefcase to the office, and so does a materialist. But they go in with a very different mindset. Right? So in terms of coming to Krishna, now remember that the pure devotee is never separated from Krishna, because they are constantly in thought of Krishna. And to think of Krishna and to be with Krishna are non-different. Krishna is non-different from his form and his names. So the pure devotee is never separated. But the impure or the developing devotee perceives a distinction. Right? We chant Krishna, but do we perceive Krishna? No. We are still developing that consciousness. So under the guidance and instruction of Guru, we are chanting Krishna. But the pure devotee, when they chant Krishna, they are actually associating with Krishna. They're already with him. So this idea, speaking is a little bit figurative, because in reality, once one comes to the platform of pure devotional service, they have full association 24/7 of Krishna. So it's not just in the spiritual world, but it happens from a state of consciousness. Right? Because there's no difference between Krishna's form, his names, his pastimes, his deities, and all of his paraphernalia. So there's no difference. We perceive it in our impure state, but the pure devotee experiences actually Krishna dancing on his tongue. That is the Shuddha Nam. pure name. When one reaches the pure name, they'll actually experience Krishna dancing on their tongue. So then, has he gone to Krishna? Yeah, Krishna's come to him, right? So this is the understanding. Okay? Any other questions?
Disha Mataji, Hare Krishna, when we help people, is that a service towards Krishna?
Yeah, when we help people, it is, but what we try to do is find the appropriate ways to help people in a way that is Krishna conscious, right? So we may not be able to, do so in a way that is so direct, preaching, about reading Bhagavad Gita and chanting the holy names. That may not be appropriate in some circumstances. So we find, ways in which we can at least bring them some level of Krishna consciousness, even through the honoring of prasadam, hearing the names or some form. But yes, being kind and serving to all living entities is in the mode of goodness. But we must transcend to the mode of pure goodness in order for it to become devotional service. Of course, the mode of goodness, is pleasing, but it is not direct devotional service. So what we try to do is how we can serve people with a way, and for someone like Mataji, who's in the profession of helping people as a profession, she can make that devotional service by using the fruits of that work in serving Krishna. So now she is rendering service to some people, some patients, and they are getting better, they're getting some, and she is earning some income from that. Now using that in devotional service makes that activity pleasing to Krishna, right? So that is a practical way in which we can do it. It may not be practical that in rendering service we get them to chant the holy names of the Lord. That may not be practical, and so we find opportunities like that. I'll give just a simple example. I was the other day, I wore my Lord Jagannath T-shirt, and when somebody commented, "Oh, that's a nice sunshine. What is that?" I said, "It's Lord Jagannath." That's it. It ended. But that person got devotional service. Why? They appreciated the form of Krishna. They don't know. Unknowingly, it was beneficial, right? So we can find even unknowing in subtle ways. Give them some cookies that are offered to Krishna. Oh, these are nice cookies. They just appreciated the Supreme Lord, right? So, different ways we can. Okay? Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, to have the habit of friendly to every living being, does it mean we have to get rid of our passion nature on our day-to-day material activities while taking care of loved ones?
So, the friendly to all living beings means that we treat everybody equal. We have no enemies. But of course, we're going to have special dispensation to our family, and Prabhupada would give the example of the philanthropist. The philanthropist is distributing great welfare to all, but still has a special reciprocation with his family. Right? So that does not mute or nullify this mood of equanimity. But it means that one shouldn't also just be so focused only on their family that they abandon thinking about the welfare of others. Right? That also is excess attachment. So one should not, be averse or attached. Aversion and attachment are both to be avoided. So the point is we take care of our family, and we take great care of them. But we take care of them knowing they're Krishna's children. They are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. And so we have a great responsibility to help them return back to their eternal Father. Right? And so that is the mood in which we care greatly for our family, and to our neighbors and society members. They're also children. So we also share a similar mood. And when someone is acting maybe inimical towards us or not so friendly, the devotee does not become disturbed. He understands, this is just due to the impurities within the heart. So let me see how I can shower more mercy on that person. This is the mood of a devotee. When someone is not being friendly to them, instead of retaliating or criticizing, instead, what do? They shower more mercy, recognizing, okay, this behavior is not because this person is bad, there's just some impurities in the heart. So they find ways to shower more mercy. This is the broad-minded nature of the devotee and the nature that we try to develop. Okay? Yes?
Prabhuji, my question is about material world. Everyone knows that one day death will come and we will leave all. But why it's hard to believe in and live practical and help each other?
Well, that is the Yudhishthira Mirage, when he was taking water from the pond, and the Rakshasa said, what is the most amazing thing in the world? And he said, everybody is dying around us, yet I am convinced it won't happen to me. That is the most amazing thing. So, we know death is a reality. It's an unfortunate reality, but it's a reality. And Krishna opens his whole Bhagavad Gita saying, Dhiras tatra namuyati. Be a dhiras, sober person. The changing of the bodies is like the changing of the clothes, he says in another verse. It's not something to lament for. Right? So the devotee is not fearful of death, the devotee is conscious of it. But yeah, it'll come. So the devotee is very conscious to utilize their time in a way to maximize whatever time they have. A few moments, like Katafanga Mirage, or thousands of years, like the great sages. Whatever it is, use it in the service of Krishna. So whatever time is available, one uses. And one need not be fearful of death. Because Krishna says, I am the protector. He gives the great confidence for us. Just engage in devotional service. And the practical means, the devotee also cares to protect the body. And the devotees should and must be very conscious of the current situation and should not think, oh, I am not this body, I'm spirit soul, I can ignore social distancing and I can go do what I want, I'm not this body, it's going to die anyways, and start reciting Dehe no Shminyata Dehe. No, that is not practical. The devotee knows this body is a vehicle to serve Krishna. And so, the devotee wants to protect the vehicle to serve Krishna. Doesn't obsess about it, but takes due caution to protect it. And if it's protected, great. If it's not, Krishna has a different plan. So, the devotee does his or her part, without lethargy, as Krishna instructs in the 3rd chapter. But then doesn't live in fear if it doesn't work, because the devotee knows Krishna's plan is supreme. Okay? So that's how one practically manages within the material world. One manages the body, maintains the body, cares for the body, but does so in a way as knowing it's a vehicle to render service, and understands ultimately Krishna will decide what happens. But one should not think, oh, I'm not this body, I can go and do whatever I want. That is not the proper application of this philosophy. One should be very, very attuned to the regulations and the things that we are being advised to do, and at the same time be very peaceful. Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, how Raghavya Prabhu? Hare Krishna Prabhuji, how to become humble?
Chant. You cannot become humble, you are humble. The nature of the spirit soul is to be humble, because the spirit soul is a tiny, 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 insignificant spark of the Supreme Lord. So it is humble. But that humility is covered by our false ego. Think, I am the doer. I am Mr. So-and-so, Mrs. So-and-so. Let me tell you all about me. That is false ego. So how to remove the false ego? Chant the holy names of the Lord. That is the means to become humble. One cannot artificially become humble. You know, there are so many self-help books on how to develop humility, how to reduce greed. None of it works in long term because it requires purification of the heart. And the purification of the heart is accomplished by chanting the holy names of the Lord. So just chant sincerely and engage in service to the Supreme Lord, and one will purify. It is a byproduct of devotional service. It is also an ingredient. So just take the shelter and keep chanting and desire to acquire humility, and Krishna will bestow it upon us.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Yes.
In the purport of this, you mentioned like pure devotee does not even want salvation, but actually we need salvation to get rid of all the bad karma. We need a karma to attain Krishna.
So why is the pure devotee not aspiring for that? Is that the question?
Yes.
Yeah. So you're right that we need salvation and freedom from the past sinful activities. But the devotee, the pure devotee, knows that in rendering pure devotional service to Krishna, Krishna will take care of everything. So the devotee doesn't have to desire to become free from anything. Just like a child who is serving mother very nicely doesn't have to express his desire for food. Mother will give. If child asks for food or not, does mother give? Of course. If child asks for clothing or not, will mother give? Of course. And all the needs will be given because that is a loving relationship. So the devotee knows Krishna loves me. I don't need to express any desire, even salvation from my sinful activities. Because as I'm rendering service to Krishna, He is my most beloved object and the most merciful. He will take care of me. So the devotee has faith in that and thus renders service. But Krishna says, Hum-Tum sarva papebhyo ma suja. He says, I will deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. So Krishna gives his assurance. But the devotee doesn't necessarily need to ask for it as much as a child doesn't even need to ask for anything. A mother will just give because of that pure loving relationship. When the devotee is in pure love with Krishna without any desires, they have full faith. So this pure devotional service, it develops when one has pure faith in Krishna. That He is our protector and He'll provide. And that's why the devotee doesn't even desire to go to the spiritual world. Because he knows, if Krishna wants me in the spiritual world, He'll take me there. If He wants me here, He'll keep me here. If He wants me somewhere else. But I have faith that Krishna knows what's best for me and only will give me what's best. And that's the consciousness. But again, that's a progressive state, So in the beginning stages of devotional service, it's okay to have these sort of moods. But as one progresses, one begins to see, whatever I ask of Krishna, He somehow reciprocates beyond my level of comprehension. Okay, I don't even want to ask anymore. I know He'll take care of it. Just as a mother and father take care of child needs without asking, similarly Krishna takes care of His devotees even if they don't ask. So that's how that consciousness develops. Is it okay?
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare
Thanks a
Krishna.
lot.
Thank you. Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Who's asking?
When we are in association with non-devotees or with family members who are not into Krishna consciousness, we come across few regulative principles are not followed by them. But we are in a situation that we cannot avoid. But we are able to maintain our regulative principles. Will this become aparad with such association?
No, you have certain responsibilities, with family customs and family relationships who may not be following. And so we take a very practical approach. And Srila Prabhupada, talked about, the disciples when, he encouraged maintain good relationships with your families, with your mother and father and others. Even if they're not practicing, you maintain good, respectful relationships. But again, we don't become inspired by their activities. We remain respectful, but a little bit distant in the sense that we don't get so enamored. So we do what's necessary to maintain good relationships, but we also, don't compromise our own beliefs, as you posted in your question, that, we're holding our own beliefs, and we also don't, become so judgmental. Instead, we shower compassion, mercy, and to see how somehow by our association they may become inspired to, take to the process, even in very small ways, even very subtle ways. But those relationships, they're important, and we maintain them. We don't compromise our beliefs, and we, make sure we maintain otherwise overall good, sort of devotee association. So don't lament too much on that. Okay, anything else? Thank you for the nice question-answer session today. Okay, so next week we'll begin discussing chapter 12. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu, for the class.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Haribol, Haribol.
Danda.